importantly, I love Advent season. And one of the reasons I love it is because we get opportunities to watch our keiki lead us in worship. Because anytime we get our children in front, it's an opportunity where we can see God working new and amazing ways, because they're going to grow up to be another generation of people that are involved in revealing God's love in the world. Throughout this Advent season, we're going through a sermon series, Draw Near. You may have noticed that when you enter into the worship space, or when you leave the worship space, a banner up by the old organ pipes that used to be back in the organ loft says, Draw Near. We have a devotional that you can take home with you that's free, that you can use throughout this Advent season. And last week we talked about wonder. We talked about drawing near to a God of wonder, of mystery, because the more we seek to know God, the more we have to know about God, because God, like all things, is a mystery the closer you get. We talked in some of our small groups about the ways in which the most essential components of our faith, things like the Trinity or like the Incarnation, which is what we celebrate at Christmas, are in the end ultimately a mystery. And this morning, if you go through the devotional throughout this week, you'll know that you'll be led through a journey of truth. So I am a millennial, and that's true. I was actually the first class of millennials. I went to Azusa Pacific University. I think I told this story. And I showed up for orientation week, and they told us, you are the first class of millennials. And we all kind of thought, what in the world is that? And now, of course, we've heard about it so much that we're tired of hearing about this group born of the baby boomers, and who they are and what they are. But there's probably one thing that's true about us, is that we have grown up with the idea, or not the idea, but with the reality that there is no such thing as single truth. I mean, think about it. We were told throughout as growing up that if you just knew your math and you just knew your science and you had everything figured out, you could know what truth is. But we grew up in a world that was brought by the divisiveness between the politics. We grew up in a world where 9/11 was a reality and East versus West. We grew up in a world where true wasn't one thing, and now we're in a world of Facebook and Instagram, where you can pull up your news feed and you get exactly what you want to hear. And literally, when I read the news now, I have to think to myself, is this true? I don't think I ever remember thinking that when I was growing up, or even in high school, or even in college. Is this true? And so I find myself opening up other news sources that I don't typically read just to see what's there, because I'm worried that, like what we hear in the news, that the media is all slanted towards a certain perspective. And I'm left seeking out this question, what is actually going on? What is actually truth? And it's a question I think that we ought to press into more intensely during this Advent season, because for us, truth begins in the manger. As Christians, we believe that God reveals God's self to us on that blessed night 2,000 years ago, when God showed up in a manger and taught us what it meant to live a life of fullness, of wholeness, of reconciliation and redemption. Last week on Sunday morning, we read a scripture that apparently was confusing to some, because afterwards a small group was reading it and they say, how in the world was that scripture chosen for the Christmas season? Because if you remember, the scripture was speaking of the end times, when the Son of Man would come on the clouds and redeem all that had been made wrong. And there's a story about the fig tree. And we're wondering, what does that have to do with Advent? It has everything to do with Advent. Because if you think about it, expectation of what's true blinds us to what is revealed as truth. 2,000 years ago, no one believed that the baby that showed up in the manger was actually the Messiah, because they were expecting a king, a Prince of Peace, the wonderful counselor, the one who would redeem all that was wrong with the world. They were expecting this Jewish-born child to overthrow the Roman Empire and to free God's people at last. They had been under oppression for hundreds of years. Jesus didn't show up in the temple when he was born. Jesus didn't show up to the prominent, influential politician or Pharisee. Jesus showed up in a manger. God with us. And in a world where we're seeking to find truth and seeking to find meaning, we often look to the media, we often look to the people that have the answers, like the pastors or the scientists or the politicians, although I'm skeptical if we look to the politicians sometimes. But we look to the experts to find the truth. But we remember that 2,000 years ago, Jesus showed up in the most unexpected of places. And truth in the future, God coming to us over and over again, God revealing full redemption, will come in the most unexpected places. Perhaps come through our children, who no one expects to know the truth, but who reveal it so often in our lives. Perhaps come from the voice in the wilderness, outside of the community, the one that we're not supposed to believe, the one that doesn't have their life figured out. Truth might come. This Advent, I wonder what it would look like if we search for God, not where we expect to find God, but we search for God to reveal God's self to us in the most unexpected places. Because that's how God came 2,000 years ago, and that's how God will come again tomorrow, the next day, or wherever God will come to bring full glory to this world. I imagine many of us might miss it altogether, unless we're seeking it, unless we're diligently searching for that voice, that soft whisper, out of the wilderness, prepare the way. And perhaps it might even come from our children who lead us. Amen.